Hello, everybody. Welcome to the New York Society Library. I'm Carolyn Waters, the director and head librarian. I see a lot of new faces here, so if you are not familiar with the library, I will just let you know that we are the oldest library in New York City, founded in 1754. We are one of about 16 independent membership libraries left in the United States, founded in the 18th and 19th centuries, and proudly independent since 1754. We are open to anyone who wants to join us, and we would love to have you join us as members. We also have many programs and services for non-members, for the public, like wonderful programs like tonight. So we're all happy to have you here. Please check out our website, sign up for our e-newsletter, and you'll find out all about the great events that we have here. And before we start, if I could ask you to please silence your cell phones or anything that might make some noise and distract the presentation, that would be great. So we're all hearing a great deal about the impact of artificial intelligence at the moment, from the useful stuff, there is useful stuff, to the sort of terrifying stuff. You know, we have a lot of authors that work here at the library. We've been talking to a lot of them about their information, their work that has been actually co-opted by some of these programs. And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation about what's happening. And we hope that we will get some new perspective tonight from our speakers. And we're very, very honored to have with us publisher Keith Riegert and Authors Guild staff member Umair Kazi. Keith is the president of the Stable Book Group and CEO of Brooklyn-based independent publishing companies Ulysses Press and Bellow Press Books. He is also CEO of Perfect Bound Technologies Corporation and a co-founder of the book publicity and digital marketing firm Pacific & Court. Prior to his current role at Ulysses Press, Keith was Associate Director of Analytics for Hachette Book Group. He is the co-founder of Little Brown Lab and Kingfisher Press. He serves on the boards of the Independent Book Publishers Association and the AI firm Inkbloom, as well as on the board of advisors at NYU School of Professional Studies in the Center for Publishing, where he also teaches analytics and consumer insights. Umair is the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Authors Guild, a professional organization of over 13,000 writers. That means he oversees the Guild's policy portfolio, including positions on copyright, collective bargaining, antitrust, and artificial intelligence. Previously, he served as the Guild's staff attorney and advised members on copyright, publishing contracts, First Amendment, and other legal issues related to the writing profession. Outside of his legal work, Umair translates poetry from Urdu, with works published in several literary journals, and he contributed a chapter on digital book piracy in the first edition of the Routledge Companion to Copyright and Creativity in the 21st Century. Thank you for being here, Umair.
My name is Sarah Holliday, and I am the library's director of programming. Our presenters asked me to join them on stage this evening just to help structure the conversation a little bit. So you will also be hearing from me, but just in order to help us reflect on some of the things brought to us by our presenters. So great, thank you so much, Umair, and thank you, Keith, for being here. This is great. Boy, we are hearing a lot about these topics these days, no surprise. So I'll plunge right in if that's good with you. When we spoke in anticipation of this program, Keith, you told the story of how you got into publishing in the first place and how you turned to the business and AI-related side of it. Can you capture that for us here?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me okay? So I'm a second generation publisher. My parents founded Ulysses Press in 1983 in Berkeley in the front room of our house a year after I was born. And we started as a travel book publishing company. Hidden Hawaii was their first big title. And then they had the Hidden series for decades. And in what I will assume will be a recurring theme tonight, that business was done under by technology. The internet came along and travel book publishing became very, very difficult. My dad was a brilliant mind and took inspiration from our local baseball team, the Oakland A's, when Moneyball came out, he got obsessed with the idea of using data to better inform publishing practices. And that became the root of Ulysses up until this day. We are very much a data-driven publishing company. When I was going to college, my dad did everything he could to push me away from the publishing industry. So naturally, I became an English literature major and went straight for it. But the issue that we found as a data-driven publishing company was we had a bunch of English literature majors trying to figure out statistics and computer programming. So I ended up going to NYU, inspired by my wife, who's a big data scientist, and getting my MBA in statistics and marketing, and really dove into technology. And my first real, am I allowed to swear here?
Sure.
Holy shit moment was I asked ChatGPT to write some Python code for me so I could scrape the Urban Outfitters website and return all of the books that they were selling. And I'd spent years learning how to code in Python. And this thing wrote better, cleaner code in 5 seconds than I'd ever written. And I had that really wonderful feeling of having wasted years of my life on learning how to do this. So that was it for me. I was very scared. I am much more terrified today than I was back then. But it is incredibly powerful and useful. And we are leaning into it in our publishing operation with serious restrictions, but I just don't see any other way to do business at this point.
Thank you. So, Umair, you hold both a JD and an MFA and have a background as a translator of poetry. How do your two hats as a legal expert and as a creator complement or contrast with one another? And in particular, thinking of the world of translation and how it's shifted in recent years in the same way that publishing as a whole has.
Thank you so much. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I need to update my bio. We have 17,000 members now, over 17,000 members in the Authors Guild. When I started, we had around 8,000 or 9,000. This is back in 2016. So it's huge. And yeah, I mean, I'll get to my bio, but it's also just interesting to see for all the kind of doomerism that we have about people not writing and reading. We kind of see that it's there is more interest in authorship than conceivably ever before. Self-publishing and all those sorts of technologies have really opened up the profession to a lot of people. So law and writing for me, I think. So I went to law school first, and I think it's always an interesting story to when you ask someone how they end up in publishing and kind of like the writing world. Keith, is very interesting. I was going to go work for a financial services company, and the financial crisis happened. So I didn't have a job for a while, and then I wrote grants for a couple of years, and then I was like, well, I'm not really going to have any career, so I might as well go, see if I can become an artist. And I moved to New York to do an MFA at Columbia. And while I was there, I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to have to get out of here one day, and I don't know what I'll do after. So I asked one of my professors who was an agent, I asked him, I'm a lawyer, like, what can I do? Is there anything I can do in publishing? And he was like, well, you should go to the Authors Guild. And so at 30, I interned at the Authors Guild. And just as I was finishing my MFA, the position opened up. So I came in. Interestingly, I had no background in copyright before I came to the Guild. I had never taken IP. So for me, law and art were kind of entirely separate spheres. But as I learned copyright on the job, and I was lucky enough to have a lot of copyright veterans, the CEO of the Authors Guild, Mary Rassenberger, has practiced copyright for several decades and worked at the Copyright Office. And just being around copyright lawyers, it was very different from being around the other kinds of lawyers I've been around. I mean, they were all people who were very thoughtful and often also had artistic inclinations. And so it made me really see law as, as a regulating force for, an enabling force for the artistic environment. I mean, yeah, you hear about anecdotes about how like censorship laws, when they were struck down, how there was kind of this fluorescence of writing, but you really see it, how much law enables culture, and both in the economic sense, but also in the more abstract kind of sense as well. So translation, I was giving this question a lot of thought because I'm very close to a lot of translators. I have friends that are translators. I was on the board of the American Literary Translators Association, going to their conference in a couple of weeks. And incidentally, just yesterday, there was a talk where it was a company, and I'm blanking on the name, but they have technology that does AI translations, and they're claiming to do literary translations, which for me it's interesting. So there's two aspects to this, right? Like there's and I think this will be a kind of a recurring theme of our conversation, is there's the market aspect, and then there's the art aspect. And when I think about the market aspect of an AI technology that does translations, one of the arguments that I've heard is, well, so many books just don't never get translated because the publishers don't want to invest in the translation. And so having a technology that cuts down the cost of doing that will just enable more books to sort of traverse borders and languages. The art part of it, I'm very kind of precious about it because I mean, translation is a highly creative act, and if you I am partial to this view of literature as being, I think it was Bolaño who said that all literature is translation. So that kind of goes to a love part of it, where if you really love something and you want it, like I started translating because I grew up with certain poems that were very close to me, and I wanted my friends to be able to sort of see that part of me. So, and then I would, you go out and you search the right word and you kind of try to get the word that, and it's I wouldn't say it's fun. It's like, but it's it's an absorption. It's like any kind of like art where you lose yourself. And so what I worry about is, I think that we need to, even if a machine is as or more capable at producing something that a human, may produce, I think we need to sort of leave space for the process, the human process of it. So I don't know, that's a kind of a long-winded answer. Maybe I open more, more questions than answers, but.
Well, this whole conversation may bring more questions than answers, but hopefully some of both. No, I think that's fascinating, and not being a translator myself, though I do benefit from others' work in it, it's an interesting perspective. I just thought worth mentioning, probably we all know this, but you used the term IP, and I think we mean intellectual property in this case, just to be very clear. So we've thrown around now this word terrifying, and I drew this from something that you, Keith, wrote in a publication. You characterized AI as really terrifying and really useful at the same time. Obviously, your current endeavors are focused on finding the most useful aspects for both authorship and publishing, including efficiency in internal operations and new options in marketing to the public. So we'll get to the terrifying, but can you talk a little bit about the useful?
Yeah, absolutely. We've found AI to be a huge productivity unlock, unlike anything that we've seen, since InDesign came about. We are using it for everything from helping authors do book outlines and organize their research. We have a full sales conference script generator that has been trained on 5 years of our sales conference scripts and their corresponding tip sheets, which we use for pitching books to our distributor. And that used to be a 2-week process for our editors. It was a really painful exercise to go through, and now it takes about 30 seconds. The trade-off there is they no longer get to build that muscle at all. One of our marketing manager built a really pretty amazing custom GPT that can automate Amazon marketing content. We are using it, Veo 3 and Sora. If you guys haven't seen these video generation platforms, are incredible. We have gone in 2.5 years from AI not being able to properly render fingers in an image to picture perfect video with sound. And that has unlocked for us, an independent publishing company, this whole world of marketing techniques that were out of reach. The things that we won't do, we won't publish anything that is AI generated. We are very strict with our authors there. We will not use AI to create covers, with the exception of AI, the AI tool in Photoshop, Firefly, which supposedly is trained only on licensed images. We will use that to change aspect ratios. But across the board in every single department, we are finding ways of just working faster and better using AI. And at the same time, I deeply, deeply resent it. So it's a weird place to be in.
And there's some directly good aspects for authors also, right? And like thinking of making intellectual property that does get more widespread in the public consciousness, streamlining adaptations, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly applications, and I'll talk a little bit about it. But one thing that I did want to say is that, AI cannot create intellectual property in the same sense, because our laws only recognize human intellect, human authorship as sort of being something that's copyrightable. So if that's one of the reasons why I think we haven't really seen studios use AI too much, because anything that an AI creates is in the public domain, so you can't really monetize it. And it's because the copyright law, and I'm not a patent expert, patent also has analogs, but copyright law certainly has, it's long jurisprudence on human authorship, that anything that's copyrightable has to be both conceived and executed by a human. And, there's gradations, the Copyright Office has some very detailed guidance on what they will register that has AI generated elements or AI use. But the short answer is any kind of expressive output of an AI is not protected. That being said, I mean, we also live in an environment, a distribution environment, where IP is not the only way things are monetized. So increasingly, as we're more plugged into the streaming services and sort of like the Netflixes, like it's more about like how long you stay in the ecosystem. So I think, and that's just to say that for some of the platforms, copyright may not be like what they're kind of looking for. They're more interested in like just giving you a stream of content that keeps you in the platform. But for authors, applications, so there are some possible applications of AI being used, licensed AI being used to sort of create like interactive ebooks are something that people, there's at least one company, and I'm blanking on the name, I don't want to misstate their name, but they have what they've done is they've recorded, I think it's called Rebind. They've recorded interviews with famous authors and thinkers like Salman Rushdie, Malcolm Gladwell, I think, and then trained an AI based on those interviews. And so as you're reading a book through their platform, you can kind of chat with this licensed sort of replica of like a famous author, and kind of like get some further insights into the book. So there's applications like that. Another application that a lot of people are very interested in trying out, and we are trying, as the guild, where we want to make sure that anything like this, if it comes out, has to be completely licensed by the author. And I know that there's a lot of startups who are just sort of like just like wanna just go ahead with this is personalization. And they have this, a lot of startups have this idea that, I think that consumers will prefer it if they could sort of customize or modify a book that they're reading. So, you get an ebook and AI, rewrites part of it. So you're a character in the book and then you read that. Or yeah, I mean, tech people have very interesting and strange notions of how, how the world works. Uh, but also, for movies and stuff like that. So that's kind of like a thing that a lot of startups are thinking for. And whether or not that's I'm open to the idea that some of these applications will create new revenue streams for authors. But I think, as we'll talk about more, the fundamental principle that I want to emphasize again is it has to be licensed. The author has to consent to it, and there's some issues around that right now.
Yes, and I think this is a concept that will recur as we go along. So to go back to Keith's term, we have heard the terrifying projections about AI at a global level, like the recent book, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. Heck of a title there. So what is terrifying as opposed to merely difficult about AI in the fields in which you work?
I go first.
Yeah, whoever's more scared, I guess. I'm pretty terrified. I think, and I think in a broader sense, like I mean, every day it's. I think what's most unnerving for me is that this is the first time we have kind of let another type of, I hesitate to call it intelligence, but we're entrusting language, something that is so fundamental to how we not only organize our lives, our communities, but our societies, just something to algorithms. And something about it is like very disturbing to me, especially now that we're seeing reports increasingly of the sort of like chatbot induced psychoses, and the other day there's, I think the most recent news today was that OpenAI knows how many, and it's a pretty staggering number of users, percentage of users who sort of like are drawn towards these more delusional kind of ideas, and it really depends on how much you use it. And I mean, in it's I think it's because it can very easily convince you that it has the same intelligence as you, and it's sort of like on your level. But at the end of the day, it's a product. It has a commercial purpose. It's built to sort of keep you engaged. That's how all tech works. I think we know it by now. Social media platforms. So I think, yeah. So I mean, that's what's terrifying. I think for me, what's terrifying is that we'll forget that these are like products, and and I think that and it happens with a lot of technology where the tech industry sort of presents it as fundamentally changing humanity, and then we buy into that, and then so that's my fear.
My big fear is around employment. If you look at the S&P 500 overlaid with the non-farm job openings in the US for 25 years, 23 years, there's almost a perfect positive correlation. Since 2023, that has collapsed completely. The S&P 500 has gone up, job openings have gone down. Now, there are a lot of confounding variables in there, but I would bet my life that AI is playing a role in it becoming much more difficult for young people to get jobs. And the fact is that the direction that AI is going right now, and if scaling laws continue at the pace that they've been at, the goal of these companies is not to create chatbots that you're going to like chatting with. They have a target on $13 trillion labor market in the United States, and they're salivating at that. And I have spent the last couple of years, even from the early days of AI, trying to figure out how AI is in any way compatible with modern capitalism and the social pact that we have with modern capitalism, which is I get to express my personal value and earn a living, and in return, I'm going to buy the products that you or another company are making. And I just don't know who's left to buy the products if it's only AI doing the work. And that is the biggest fear that I have. And it is happening now. Like, we're seeing massive layoffs, especially in the tech industry, which very ironically seems to be the first one to get hit the hardest because it's all trained on their stuff and on the internet. And if it continues to roll like this, I don't know how we make such a rapid adjustment.
Okay.
We've seen this many times before, you know, the 1890s with the first waves of industrialization and the railroads and the rampant speculation that happened there in the 1930s, in the 2000s. We're seeing it continue after the pandemic with the e-commerce boom and the hollowing out of commercial areas. And I think it could be really devastating. And it doesn't feel like politicians or the people who are creating this have any idea how to communicate the gravity of the situation or to really get a handle on it. And they're all just saying that it's going to be a utopia, a tech utopia where we don't have to work. But for me and for a lot of people, like, that's one of the main ways that I derive my self-worth, is being a creative person and writing books and drawing. And it's the last thing that I want to turn over to AI. I just want to answer my fucking emails. That's it. Just leave me alone.
A commonality between your two responses there, I think, is the sense that the people who are strongly in favor of it say everything is going to be great, there's rose-colored glasses, and the rest of us are sleepwalking, whether we mean to be or not. So to go along with that, how do you feel general public perceptions of the impacts of AI and mainstream media coverage? How are they getting it wrong? How are we getting the wrong impression? Even people who are interested in it, how are we not able to perceive the dangers or the benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I think Keith said it so well. It's you know, once you devour everything, like, what's left? And I think that's what it's just like, just this growing cloud where you're not gonna have, who's gonna, if our economy depends on consumer spending, you know, and people just don't have income, like, what are they gonna spend on? There are all of these unanswered questions. I think, and I don't know if I don't see policymakers actually grappling with that. I mean, I think, especially when it comes to the labor market, you know, I mean, we've the guild, we have a pretty you know, we're pretty plugged into the AI conversations on pretty much every front here. We went to Congress and, you know, had talked to lawmakers, and it just seems like the labor part of it is something that no one's really touching. And for you know, it could be a perfect storm because, you know, there's a lot of suspicion in the U.S. for against any kind of labor organizing in the first place. So, you know, I mean, I think that when you start with a default of, like, you know, we need to start with, like, capitalist fundamentals. Okay, that's fine, but, you know, now where does the intervention come in? You know, if it's creating such an existential threat. In terms of media coverage, I think what I see, it's two different types. There's, like, either the AI hypers or the AI doomers, and a little in between. So that would be my kind of impression of the media coverage and you know, critique of it.
Yeah. I think most people just have their heads buried in the sand. It really reminds me of that Netflix movie, Don't Look Up. Because it is like it's a very significant thing that is barreling towards us, and economists for the most part have ignored it. And it's just something that we really need to all start paying very close attention to, because it's going to begin to affect every part of our lives. And oh man, there's one other. Oh yeah, the big thing is the bubble that we're in. 92% of GDP growth in the first half of this year was in data centers. And my colleague Brian and I were on the train over here, and he showed me that NVIDIA now has a $5 trillion market cap, which is larger than the GDP of every country except for the US and China. And that's the other side of this for me, is we are all counting as investors and citizens of this country on those scaling laws working out, and us getting to AGI and these companies not collapsing. And I think the next couple of months and next year are going to determine whether that is legitimate or not. There's a lot of concern that these LLMs have already ingested the entire internet. Now the internet is filled with AI slop, so that becomes off limits to the AI. Are they actually going to be able to achieve these levels of intelligence that they are touting? And if they don't, then we're going to head into a deep recession. And I honestly think that would be the best case scenario. If we do achieve those scaling laws, I don't know what the world looks like after that.
So an LLM, I know, is a large language model, and that's the general term for things like ChatGPT. You used a term that I don't think I know, though. AGI.
Artificial general intelligence.
Oh, general intelligence.
And then the next step is artificial super intelligence, ASI.
Which is terrifying in a different way, but not something we're able to deal with practically at the present time. It's speculative. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, a specific thing, you mentioned the problem of AI slop taking over large parts of the internet. What is the role of specifically AI generated books that are swamping Amazon.com and other book sources? Do you see it as a problem for writers, for readers, for fact checkers, for everybody?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's and we just keep seeing it grow. The other day, the Guardian reached out and they published this article. Someone did a study on, and I think I'll take it with a grain of salt, because I think the entity that did this study also like has some product. But basically, what they found is like in the herbology category on Amazon, 82% of the books were AI generated. So, if people are buying these books and going mushroom foraging, a lot of people are getting sick probably, or, worse. But, we've been seeing this from the early days. So one thing I'll say is that gaming the Amazon algorithm is, predates AI, and there are all manner of artful scams to do that we've seen. Book stuffing was one where, because Kindle Unlimited pays out based on pages read. So for a while, authors, and, I say authors with air quotes because a lot of them, they're just, kind of internet entrepreneurs that want to make a quick buck. But you would essentially have like long, blank spaces in the text. So you kind of like, the reader flips through the pages and you get a payout. There was also a copy paste gate where you would start a book, but then paste someone else's book in between. And then also like there's AI. Before AI, there were companies. Usually, you would have like a labor group in Philippines or India or Bangladesh, where basically you have this, like almost like a sweatshop, and people just go in and they're just typing out books. And that was, because of the exchange rate, those guys can get paid, and you can kind of make money here selling those books on Kindle. So it's it's always been like a volume game, right? So, and I think AI just makes it even more, it makes it easier. You're not paying, the 2 cents an hour you're paying to someone in Philippines to write a book. You're generating it. Fact checking is a huge issue, especially, when it comes to books on even like, self-help books or psychology or, the AI will hallucinate and make up sources. So it's also the credibility of the information that's getting passed on. It's a huge problem. But for all authors, what we're really concerned about is market dilution, is the devaluing or lowering the value of what an author puts into a book. It can happen in a few ways. So, if you have a glut of AI generated books on Amazon, one thing that could happen, especially if they're in a paid or, in a pooled payment model, then the payment that the author gets may be reduced because there's a larger supply of books, and most of that, and the author has spent a year writing something, but the AI generated book took 5 minutes. One of the things that we see a lot of is, an author will put up or a publisher will put a listing up for pre-pub, and you'll have AI generated books on the same subject show up. So if you look up, that happens a lot. And consumers will buy those books, thinking just the way they're advertised. Oftentimes these kind of, I just call them copycat books. Copycat books also use the same font as the cover, or we'll say use the author's name, but say, so and so with, and then it'll be a made up author name. And Amazon, for the most part, their interest, they don't want AI slop to completely dominate, because they want to have a reasonable user experience. They don't want people coming back and complaining, saying, I bought this really shoddy book. But I think at the same time, they're not prohibiting AI generated books. So my sense is that in some way I think having that stream of books just allows them to kind of control it might be that it kind of enables them possibly to charge higher marketing fees to publishers, because they're saying we have so many books, now if you want your book to be featured in the results, you pay us more, so your book stands out from the AI generative slop. So there are all of these considerations that we're looking at.
Keith, I'd love to hear your thoughts related to the slot problem in general, and maybe reflecting on Amazon in particular. But I also want to throw in the note that often when we think about impacts on authorship, we're thinking of, well, all authors are creative people, but we're thinking of people who are working in works of the imagination, fiction writers, poets. But is the impact even greater for nonfiction writers, and particularly things that need to get fact checked? How are you seeing that in your actual publishing area?
Yeah, the AI slop is a really bad thing. Kara Swisher has a great example of her biography going up, and half a dozen Kara Swisher biographies appearing within a day. And I gave the AI talk at the US Book Show earlier this year, and I really wanted to show how easy this was. So I built an AI agent workforce, and the first agent would take a book idea, could just give it a single line. It would do all of the research. It was a deep research AI model. It would pass it off to different agents who were specific writing agents. They would write all of the chapters, pass it off to a generative image agent that would create the cover. And then the last agent, a general purpose one, would write the marketing content. And I was able to take a single sentence, write me a beginner's guide to surfing, and put it on KDP 5 minutes later.
Wow.
And it was a terrible book, but it was a book. It was fully fleshed out. And, we have been dealing with this for decades, as you said, and especially with the rise of self-publishing, there's always been copycat books. So Amazon is a big problem. I do think that the one potential thing that saves us is that they are now moving from a very old search engine optimization algorithm to one that is geo or generative engine optimization that is going to hopefully make it harder for slop to surface in your search results, but it's Amazon and you never know what they're gonna do. And then to your other question, nonfiction is an area that I'm very worried about. Not necessarily for the AI slop that is coming on. We've been dealing with that for decades, but with the Anthropic settlement, we had about $1.5 million worth of books that had been pirated, and a lot of what we're looking at is, are people who would be interested in buying a book on the subject, just spending 20 minutes having ChatGPT text at them about that subject. And that is a concern of mine. Same thing with cookbooks. ChatGPT is really good at cooking. But I think we'll get to this a bit later, but I think that in a weird way, it is actually increasing the perceived value of human written books. And I'm excited about that.
So yeah, so pulling that thread a little bit, I'm going to share my favorite quote, which is appropriate to this room. The library's trustee, Shirley Hazard, winner of the National Book Award for The Great Fire, there is her National Book Award for The Great Fire on our mantelpiece, once said in a meeting I was in, "The book is a perfect form," meaning I think that the print book is particularly well suited to the way humans see and think. Can you talk about some ways that this is particularly true of print as opposed to ebooks or other kinds of reading or consumption of texts? When are electronic options better or just as good? I mean, Mary, you were talking a little bit about interactive things or things that involve the author adding to them. So that's, a useful thing in its own right. But particularly the question of human attentional styles and ways of learning, ways of interacting with art in print as opposed to things.
I mean, I think it's really interesting. The word attention, I think, is key because it's not just what we pay attention to, but attention. So much of attention is actually ourselves, right? Like, I mean, I'm a big believer in you can solve many problems if you're just attentive to them. But attention, ironically, was the title of the first paper that announced the advent of this technology called the transformer technology, which basically makes LLMs possible. And the title was "Attention is All You Need." so it was ironic that you said that. And I mean, in some other ways, we live in an attention economy, right? So a book, I feel sentimentally that I think a book is a perfect form in many ways, in terms of how it engages, imagination, how, I mean, I read the word house and only I have, the image of that house is unique to me. No one else really has that. It has those basic attributes, but I'm also coloring it with my own memory of houses and the likes. And and I think the way I am also partial to print books. I grew up in the digital age, so it's not that I'm but I do think that the way you spend time with a print book is very it's very special in a way. It closes off the world. It's just I think of the opening of Calvino's "If on a Winter's Night," where he's addressing the reader and he's just lie on a couch and relax. And I think the problem with digital media is that there's always too much going on. So, when if you're reading something on an iPad, you're going to want to look at Instagram, you're going to want to look at TikTok if you're reading on a computer. And I'm sure there's readers who don't do it, but I'm not one of those readers. So, I mean, I in some ways I do like the idea of separating the book from the, separation between book and digital media. But I don't know where this was going, but I think I don't know how it ties to AI.
Well, Keith, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah.
With the,
So I think the relationship to AI is loose, but there. I'm actually incredibly bullish about the print book and the future of the print book. And the reason why is that it is the one form of entertainment that does not require your phone.
Yeah.
Right? It is a break from the screen. And what we've seen in the publishing industry over the last couple of years, especially as we've moved out of the pandemic and book prices have finally started to go up, which is a really good thing. The perceived value of a book is getting higher and higher. And you go into Barnes and Noble now and you see, paperbacks with sprayed edges, which had, never been done on paperbacks before. And the market is becoming a luxury market. Like a book is a luxury item. It is an indication that you have time to not be on your phone and you have the attention span not to just be scrolling through TikTok. And it is a pure analog form of entertainment. And one of my favorite facts, and this is a couple of years old, so I think it might have changed, but I hope not, is the number one source of revenue in the music industry was streaming, so Spotify and Apple. The number two was vinyl, right? And it's moving out of this digital world and intentionally doing that for your own mental health. So I think that there is it's not going to be everybody in the country is suddenly going to adopt reading because their brains are fried. But I think the future for this industry is really, really bright.
One of the phrases that came up when we were speaking earlier is that publishing is not a zero-sum game, but attention is a zero-sum game. And I think, to me, that does speak to that issue of, if you're interested in something, are you going to read a book about it, or are you going to, where does the attention go?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest challenge that we're facing, is a flood of entertainment options. Just everything is trying to take up every minute of your life. And I had this revelation a couple of months ago where I was lying in bed and got stuck flipping through Instagram, right? And that period of the night to me is a sacred period where normally I sit and read and quiet down. And I just went into a hole. And 20 minutes later, I came out of it and my time for reading had passed. And I just thought, if I'm doing this and 10 million other people are doing this, and we do it so much that we all read one fewer books a year, then we've just cost this industry 10 million units in sales. And so that to me is like, that's the zero-sum game. People will buy books on the same subject and build out their library on, birds of the Northeast or something. But you are competing with Netflix and Amazon and Instagram and TikTok, and the AI tools that are coming on and are now flooding social media make it so easy to create content that it's just going to keep you sucked in.
So I do want to leave some time for discussion with the audience, but I hope I can ask you to envision, where is the place among the noise that would be okay enough for everyone. If you could rule the world and say, we're going to use AI, but only like this and not in a way that harms these things and so forth. Thinking of writers, publishers, readers. Obviously, a key thing is licensing. A key thing is maintaining the human. What do you see as the main points for that? And particularly where I'd love to end up is, what can we as readers do to contribute to that? And what can we as writers do to contribute to that? Big question.
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I always feel when I look at this, I wonder if am I too much of a sort of am I infected with nostalgia so much that I want to make sure let's just keep doing things the way we are doing things as opposed to, but it's just like I think when you kind of look at the cost of sort of having this technology around and scaling to a certain point, what the environmental cost, the sort of labor cost, the social cost, the fact it seems to me quite sort of unnerving, and it's not, and I think we've had like periods in capitalism where there was a balancing with respect to social benefit. And I feel like, for whatever reason, in the progressive era, the early 20th century, the trust busting, that's what, like where the government was just like, okay, we know what you're doing, but we don't want all of this to be for your own shareholder value or profit. We want to make sure that, but basically, I think also because governments were interested in their own survival, and I feel like the moment we're in right now, especially our government, like I don't think the current administration is really interested in survival of government. It's something else. They've bought into a different idea of government. But anyway, I think maybe that's being a little so okay enough. Licensing certainly. I do think that we need to have very good both technological and regulatory structures around how AI is deployed and used. It's yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be especially in education and then unfortunately, I think we do need more funding for the arts. We need these adjunct means of support so that humans can keep making that stuff.
I think you can tell that I'm very optimistic about AI. For sure. Yeah, I mean, on the publishing side, I really want to see a made by humans stamp that goes on every book in a bookstore.
Yeah.
And I know, but I want it to be like the standard. And I just, I have a really hard time imagining this working out right. Technology has not been beneficial to everybody. I vividly remember having a moment with my dad where we were watching some documentary on climate change, and he turned to me and he said, if this turns out to be true, we'll look back at the Industrial Revolution as the worst mistake in human history. And that has been like in my mind for the last couple of years. I think that the progress that we've made with the Anthropic settlement and with Disney and Warner Brothers, who have big claws and teeth going after Mid-Journey, those are positive developments in the right direction. I personally do not expect copyright law to survive for the next couple of years or after the next couple of years. And the reason that I say that is we are in an arms race with China to develop AGI and ASI. China is much more permissive upstream than we have been or that our copyright laws allow for. They are much stricter downstream, so you cannot create copyright violating stuff, but they are, opening up the fair use case for training AI.
Mhm.
And that is really troubling to me if copyright gets damaged in that way. And I think with this current administration, that is the direction that we're going.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the signals that we're getting, the current administration wants to intervene, use the DOJ to intervene in the cases. They stopped at the last minute in the Meta case, but we have a case against OpenAI in New York, and we're sort of fearful that the government will sort of come in and yeah, they don't want any regulation around AI, and certainly there's a lot of antagonism towards copyright. Well, I mean, the Register of Copyright was fired 2 days after the Copyright Office released a report. But even though it's said that it was because she was fired because she was a Democratic appointee, and there's a general sort of purge of all Democratic kind of technocrats in the government, but still, it's and the administration, because Copyright Office and copyright policy sits within the Library of Congress, which is which is part of the legislative branch. But this administration is trying to take that and put it make copyright policy through the USPTO, which is an executive branch. So yeah, there's a lot going on there.
So if I'm a reader and I'm going to a bookstore and I want to look for a book, I want to encourage human-made works. What are some ways that I can do that?
Yeah, I mean,
If I'm an author, I'll join the Authors Guild. How about that one?
Yes, we launched a trademark. It's a registered trademark with the USPTO called the Human Authored Mark, and we have a database. So if you're an Authors Guild member, you can use it for free. If you're not, I think you can. It's like it's $5 or something like that, and you can use it if you really want to sort of both make a statement and let the world know this book is human authored. You can put that mark on the book or inside the book. Publishers are also interested in it. I think some of the reservations were around like, well, do we want this on the cover? And the designers were like, you're just gonna mess up the design. Which is a real concern. I get it. I get it. I mean, I think a well-designed book, I will say, is something else. So you can put it inside the cover. But and hopefully, like, this is gonna grow. We have interest from our sister organizations in the UK and France and Australia. So hopefully, we're hoping that in the next few months, the uptake will increase a lot. And yeah, I mean, we should have regulations on platforms and marketplaces to identify synthetic media. I think that's just important in so many ways. Especially, I mean, there's so many videos that I saw, Sora videos. I was not like I didn't realize they were AI generated, and it's crazy. I mean, I should know.
I keep seeing these videos of like a tiger snatching a baby, and then the cat comes and saves it, and enthralled, and then you see the little Sora.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a big problem. I think that there's going to be a backlash to that, and probably a drop. We already are seeing a big drop in social media use among younger generations. But it's just bad swap.
Well, thank you. I think we could take a couple of questions from the audience, if that's good with you. I definitely want to get you, but spotted you first, so that's good.
So first of all, super interesting. Thank you both. This human stamp, and I'm going to use a real life example and apologize if anybody's related to him. I'm reading the new Grisham book, and after 2 or 3 chapters, I turned to my wife and said, "I don't think he wrote this. I think this is AI." And my question is, so I'm John Grisham. I feed a John Grisham sub, instance. It's just got my books in there. And I say, okay, give me a book. 5 seconds later, I've got the book. Maybe I go in and tweak a name or I reread it and I rewrite a couple paragraphs that I don't quite like. Is that human made? Like, how have you guys been thinking about what is this definition of human made? And if I'm John Grisham, do I have to,
copyright that?
This is a really interesting question.
do I have to say like that's
Right.
So it's really interesting on a lot of levels because I'm glad you mentioned this. I wanted to mention it, but I couldn't find a way to. There was a research study that came out recently. Jane Ginsburg, who's at Columbia, she and there's I think there was an economist, but also computer scientists. They basically the research study found that if you train an AI on the work of an author, and get like a professional writer to sort of emulate their style, the readers preferred the work that was AI generated, to the emulated style by the human author.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also has the cost breakdown of training the books, which was pretty, interesting. It's I know a writer and he was like at the bottom of, so I was, but it's, so that's the thing. And so from a copyright point of view, it can be copyrighted, I say with an asterisk, because the characters, the settings, the plot, like everything, if that is expression that is taken from John Grisham's earlier sort of works, that will be copyrighted, but yeah, the output itself will not be because it's AI generated.
But does he have to declare it was?
He does.
But so
If
it's an
he's
honor,
trying to
it's an
register.
honor system.
Yeah.
Well, the human author stamp is an honor system, but it is enforceable in the sense that if you misuse it, we can, you're violating trademark and we can sue you for a trademark violation. But so far, it's in an honor system, and the reason why is there are AI-based AI detectors, but they're just as bad as. So we didn't want to use something like that because we didn't want to flag actual human authored works as being AI generated. So far it's a human system, but yeah, I mean there will be authors, and authors do experiment with this. I know authors who have trained their own AI to sort of like work with them on their drafts and or produce. I mean, I think the question. And I John is one of the plaintiffs in the OpenAI lawsuit, so I think I know where he would stand on this. But I think for a lot of writers, the pleasure is in the writing, right? Like the writing is an act of discovery. So I think if you're a real writer and you necessarily don't want to necessarily take shortcuts to get AI but yeah, there will be, I don't know. I mean, I guess like there would be authors who just thrive on volume and they're like, well, I don't want to write anymore. I just want them and they could train an AI and produce the next book. We wouldn't consider it to be human authored. The definition that we had in the agreement is that there has to be the only AI use you can have is de minimis, which is also the standard that the Copyright Office uses, and that basically allows use of say grammar or spell check and things like that, but nothing that's expressive.
Yeah, we think it's a really big problem as publishers because the fact is that we are now fully on an honor system with our authors and our editors and our illustrators, that they are not using these tools, and that I think the reality of this situation is it's already over, it's done, and these things are happening. As a publisher, I secretly kind of love the idea of just being able to train
I know, right?
an author's works and constantly come out with new ones, but it's pretty awful.
Of course, that worked for Carolyn Keene writing Nancy Drew a million years ago, right? They just farmed it out to other humans, so it was still human made. Adrian, did you want to chat?
Who owns this technology? Who does it belong to, and how do they profit by it?
Specifically the LLMs like OpenAI and Anthropic. Yeah, so massive investments coming in from every direction. I don't think that they are generating significant revenue, but their burn is way higher. They're trying to raise trillions of dollars to be able to build out these models. They take up a phenomenal amount of energy, a phenomenal amount of compute. And I think that the ownership thing is going to be very interesting in the next decade. Ed Nauka, who's a really brilliant journalist at Publishers Weekly, Fulbright scholar, and this great idea where this becomes a public utility basically, and we all own shares in AI, and that is how we bridge the gap from being workers and adding to this economy to at least being able to make a living. Whether that can happen or not is a big question.
So they're publicly held companies like traded on the stock.
Oh yeah.
And mainly American, or that.
I mean, it's global. There are companies in China that are doing the exact same thing. They caught up very quickly. NVIDIA is the top chip maker. They're now selling to every different country. They're the ones with the $5 trillion market cap. And what's really troubling to me is it has become this weird circular economy within the chip makers and AI, where the LLMs will invest into the chip makers will invest into the AI companies, and then you have a lot of retail investors who are chasing this at the same time. I think that's one of the big reasons why we've seen the S&P 500 go on a tear, while it's pretty clear that the rest of the economy is not doing well.
The gentleman over there.
Yeah, I was wondering, what do you think the implications are for critical thought as a whole? And then I'm also wondering, where do you draw the line ethically? For example, I think a couple times when I was writing in Word, I used Copilot and something, and it just says, well, you might want to rephrase it this way. Is that an example of unethical behavior, or where do you come down on that?
I mean, I think it's going to be a moving target, and it's going to evolve. My favorite anecdote to your critical thinking piece is, one of the things that we are very concerned about is that the generation that is now coming into the workforce went to college with ChatGPT as a tool. My favorite anecdote was there was a class on ethics in technology, and half of the students used ChatGPT to answer the question, what is your name and what do you want to get out of this course? And that to me is that's bad.
It's terrifying.
And there are some studies, there's one study, it hasn't been peer reviewed, but I think it was the MIT Media Lab that did it, where basically they compared if you use AI or not, and the cognitive debt, I think they call it. So basically the more you use it, the less sort of like memory, it affects your learning, memory, and recall. So there certainly is like a cost, that but maybe we just don't need critical thinking, that's in the future.
Yes. From the 1980s through the 2000s, I authored 7 books that have been published in 46 editions. And to me, this era feels like and felt like the golden age of freelancing. Is the golden age of freelancing, is it over?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, I think it ended several decades ago, but yeah.
I would say, for me, it was an eye-opening experience when I came to the Guild in 2016, and I looked at contracts from even, as late as like 2000, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, you could actually make money from like just being a magazine writer. You could raise a family. Like there was a gentleman that I helped who was who wrote language arts textbooks, and I was like, I can't believe it. Like that you spent your whole life doing this and send your kids to college doing this. Such an alien idea for me I
mean, I think every art form is starting to struggle with this. The movie industry and the television industry is up in arms, and the amount of content that is flooding into the market, like everything's being really devalued, and the work that people are putting into their art is very easily replicated now by AI and
as a
technology.
follow-up, what is the membership statistics of the Authors Guild? Is it increasing, is it decreasing? Now, I've been a member since 1984 when I wrote my first book.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, our membership is increasing, at the same time. When I started, I think it was 8,000 members in 2016, and today we have over 17,000 members. So, and I don't really have a good explanation, I think. I think that in the economic terms, like the writers that are sort of making a living, a lot of them are self-published, or the indie authors, on Amazon, and so that's a big demographic that has emerged. So partly our membership increase is probably owing to that. Also, I think maybe writers are recognizing that they need community more than ever now, given all of the threats. But yeah, it has gone up.
I hate to cut things short. Let's pick at least one more question. It's okay with you. Oh, over here.
Thank you, but this lady in the purple jacket has been sort of leading off, trying to get your attention, so I cede the floor.
Thing relates to the book, the John Grisham book.
Yeah.
The Widow.
Yeah.
Which I just listened to on audio, and in the last credit.
Tell me what happens.
At the end says, we want you to know that this cannot be used for training for AI.
Oh, well done.
It's actually in the credits, if anyone would like to hear it, I can.
Oh, that's good to know.
Interesting.
We have it in contracts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a model clause that authors are putting in. Yeah, I mean, publishers are also using that clause. The problem is, the AI companies went out and did it anyway.
So maybe one more question, and then do please feel free to just stay in
Can I have it back?
converse with one another. Yes, please.
As a, first of all, thank you for everything that you've been saying. This has been fascinating. As a journalist and an author and also a former English teacher, I'm struggling with research. I don't believe anything. I haven't for a long time, but I really don't believe anything now. There aren't books to look at. I end up calling people and hounding them and asking for information this way, which is not necessarily a good thing to do either. But as I was working on this stuff, I realized even the concept of plagiarism, what is that anymore? Because you can't call out a student and say, well, you took this from Jane's book over there. And actually, no, I didn't.
Yeah, you'd almost prefer that they just took it verbatim. Would prove that they read it.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. I mean, I think also because classrooms and universities, I think it's everyone has a fear of missing out. So universities are also, they're not saying don't use AI. They're just trying to figure out how, because they also know that students will use AI. But then there's also money in kind of like, building AI into curriculum, because the AI companies are funding a lot of so it's,
It's so scary.
it's very scary.
It's really scary. Yeah, my wife is a professor at Stony Brook and has had to completely change the way that she administers exams and essays. Everything is in a blue book.
Handwritten.
We're going back to when I was in college. It's kind of fun. Conversely, in my NYU class, I tell them they should be using AI for everything. And the only reason that I'm saying that is because I want them, this is a cohort of students who are tech averse, they're English literature majors, they want to go into publishing for God knows what reason. And I am very intent on them coming out of that course being a little bit more AI literate than they were going in, because otherwise I just don't know how you get a job.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much on behalf of the library. Keith Riegert and Umair Kazi.